Welcome to First Dates and Soulmates, where we may have hurt you before, but hear me out. It's going to be different this time. I'm your co-host, Meg Nikki.
And I'm Nikki McKnight. That was so good. That was great, Meg.
This week we are talking all about second chance romance. We're doing a trope deep dive in one of my favorite tropes, and I'm so excited for this, Nikki. So before we leap into my framework, because God knows we're going to have a framework.
I love a framework.
Where's this rank in your sort of trope premise archetype space?
Second chance. I like it. I do read a lot of it just by virtue of the fact that I like yearning. Second chance does have a lot of that. For me, second chance and slow burn are fairly analogous. There are some key differences, and I'm sure your framework will dive into them.
Oh, absolutely.
But I love slow burn and yearning, and second chance does have that. I also love in second chance where the author and by thus the characters have to prove why the second chance is a good idea.
Yes.
Like you have to because a lot of times I think we talked about this in Enemies to Lovers. If there's like a childhood incident and like maybe they dated and were betrayed, or maybe he cheated, or maybe it was a bully or something, I was like, prove to me that you are not an asshole. Much like you just said, prove to me that you're not going to hurt me again in the same way. Because ultimately with second chance, one, if not both of the characters are coming into it with some baggage and some fear around that baggage, some reticence around that baggage. And second chance is a genre where I'm like, get on your fucking knees and beg. And while you're down there, But you, like, prove to me why this is going to be different. So I like it. Because I also think when we were talking about Bridgerton and how characters have to be an arc, it's okay for characters to be shitty at the beginning. If they grow from that, if they're meant to grow. This is not villains, but like main characters. Your main characters can be shitty if they progress. So I am totally fine in a second chance for characters to be shitty, knowing that they're probably going to have some moment of redemption, or there's going to be some moment of clarity that puts their shitty behavior in a new light later, and then characters have to come to terms with that. So overall, I like it. And I'm always intrigued to see how they're going to make that moment of like, prove to me why this is different work.
That, I think, is the hinge of second chance. So I'm so excited that you came to that first, because I think that if second chance doesn't have the how it's going to be different this time, then it's just another chance, not a second chance.
And I'm not going to believe after the ending that it's ever going to work out.
Exactly.
Like, cool, you solved it now, but then what?
Right. There needs to be a change that happens, and we'll definitely talk about this in the next episode when we talk about Sweet Home Alabama, but we're not there yet.
Not quite.
So
I would also, but like Meg, one of the reasons why we're doing second chance is because your next book release is a second chance.
We're doing second chance month in preparation for Two Wrongs Don't Make a Playwright.
So my question for you then is, why do you like second chance? Because you literally wrote it.
I literally started the series writing it. And then I went, they're not ready yet. They're not ready yet. I can't start.
It won't be different.
Here.
It won't be different, Nick.
No, it would have been different, but it wasn't the start to the story that the reader could have taken. Right? It would have started too deep, too rich. It wouldn't have established the psychological trust between me and the reader if we hadn't started with something that was simpler and easier as an entry point.
Ooh, and second chance is hard to start with, if you think about it.
It's a really emotionally devastating choice. Because we're not starting from a place of hope. We're starting from a place of history.
Ooh. Ooh, this is why you're the writer of the two of us.
I'm also the one that prepared the framework, so I have some time.
Take the credit. It was off the cuff. It was so natural.
It just came out of me. It
just came out of me. I'm just so verbose and literary.
I think we all know that the first draft never turns out that clean. No, I think when you start with these people are meeting for the first time. Even, we talked a little bit in the last episode about the difference between friends to lovers and second chance and slow burn versus second chance and sort of how these overlap genres. But when you start with, this is the first time that we're meeting and this is our first impression, that feels very different. It feels like hope. It feels like you don't have the full story, and you can sort of like project the person that you want to be for a while into that relationship. Versus with second chance, you come in guarded, you come in armored, you come in going, this person hurt me before. How can I protect myself from being hurt like that again?
Okay, Meg, I'm going to fuck with your framework maybe a little bit here.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you a question.
Please.
And I know this is author dependent, story dependent, but in a second chance, do you typically prefer the book to open in present and flash back to the original chance, I'll call it? Or do you prefer a linearly told second chance?
I think it depends on the narrative. And I think it depends on what happened within the rupture and the reason for the breakup. Where sometimes you want to start with the breakup. You know, I talked last week about, again, The Magic. I shipped that one. And it starts with it goes completely linear. It does not have flashbacks. It does not, there's like little memories and stuff, but it starts with them at 17, 18, 19 years old falling in love. And then it jumps forward 12 years and we don't know what happens during that time. And that is a craft choice. But personally, as a writer, it was more fun for me to start in the present and then drop back into the past and sort of align the past timeline with what's happening in the present timeline, which is, again, why my book is like 1 million pages long.
I was like, it's you. Of course it's going to be 250,000 words. What is the final word count on Two Wrongs Don't Make a Parade? Do you have
148,000
Damn,
words.
girl. I'm excited to read it because guess what? Here's another sneak peek, guys. The reason we chose this theme is because Meg's book is coming out and we're going to talk about it because I have the arc and I'm about to read it.
Yeah. And it's so here's the other thing about second chances. You have time for like depth and like nuance. And so with Kate and Nick, and this is true of many second chances, not just mine, but with Kate and Nick, it's a 12-year window where the story is being told. And so it's happening in the present, and the present timeline takes 8 months. And then over the course of that 8 months, we're dropping back to when they met 12 years ago, to when they took a car ride 10 years ago, to when they lived together 8 years ago, to when they broke up 7 years ago. And you have all these little moments along the way where you realize what didn't work in the past that they've either changed or are willing to change in the present.
Ooh.
But not all second chance needs to be dual timeline like that either.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff.
You know I love a time jump. Not time travel, just time jumping. Someday I'll write a time travel romance because I love a time travel romance. But that's not stressful. This one.
Too stressful. Not this one. Not this one.
I've got a whole back catalog of what I need to write next. So, do you have any favorite, like, second chance books? Or do you want me to just leap into the framework?
I was like, do the framework. Because
do the framework.
I undoubtedly have many. Can I identify them individually right now? No.
I have a dozen book recs that we're going to put into the show notes. We
Fantastic.
don't have time to talk about all of them.
I'm sure I will think of things as we go.
And that's the thing. Like, when I say, like, oh, here's how this can work, you might be like, oh, have you read this one? Right? So we'll
yes, there's
work
genius in the framework, y'all.
It's like an operations person and an AI person started a podcast. Now I'm calling myself an AI marketing person. Who knew? Who knew
when
we started this 2 years ago?
SEO,
GEO, LLM. Oh, so many. We're not talking about that today.
No.
Here are all the things that need to happen for a second chance to work. And I have in my framework, scroll. I think I said seven elements.
7-part framework. Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot.
They don't have to happen in this order. This isn't like our fake dating framework where it had to start with the premise and then it had the pact and then it had them deepening their relationship. This can sort of happen in any order because second chance has to happen over a period of time. That's one of the requirements, right? So the first thing that needs to happen in a second chance is history. Second chance can't happen as they meet the first time. It's just like you have to have a real relationship. We sort of talked about this a little bit in the last episode. A real relationship where both of them were committed. We have to have some sort of skin in the game, some emotional stakes. And then it has to end in a way that there was emotional damage, that it caused loss in some way. If readers don't believe that the first version of that relationship was meaningful, then the second chance has nothing upon which to build. Like it just is later in life. It's a slow burn.
Yeah, I like that. I like that distinction. I think you're right. There has to be some type of
commitment,
skin in the game, commitment, even if it was not a formalized commitment. I think I don't think all second chance has to have the characters be in a committed relationship for any period of time or confess feelings or anything, but they have to have some type of established history. Maybe that's friendship, cool. And then something happens and maybe just their friendship gets wrecked, or they have to move away and there were things left unsaid. But I think your point about emotional damage is the key differentiator for me in Second Chance. Something has to have happened.
Something has to break.
Yeah.
Right? And that is my second thing. The second element is like, why did it end? So you have to establish at some point, ideally early in the story, why it ended, what broke them apart. And it could be a lot of things. It could be fear, betrayal, grief, right? It could be some sort of outside force. Often, sometimes with like more of the external second chances, it's like our parents didn't want us together. And so they forced us apart. You know, they made me go to college in California when you were in Massachusetts, kind of thing. And then there's also, and this, I think this should be established early, each character has to have a belief of why it ended that may or may not be the truth.
Ooh. Yeah, people's different perspective on an incident is fertile ground for plot, because it can be misunderstanding. It can be, remember we talked in the last episode about words we've only ever seen written and never pronounced. Obfuscation, shadowy. I feel like I'm missing a syllable in there somewhere. But obfuscation, sure. It's a shadowy place from whence we come. I love it when there is a different perspective on why something happened. I do think sometimes it goes too far, and sometimes I'm like, you just had to have a fucking adult conversation, especially if this thing happened because of like eavesdropping and you only heard part of the conversation. That angers me. I'm like, just ask them. But if there's different perspective, if there's different things like, oh, you know, you're going to college here, I'm going to college here. Or maybe if they're younger, my parents have to move because we got a new job and I'm in Vermont. And typically that's of an age when social media wasn't a thing yet. So it's not like they could stay connected on Facebook. You could have a pen pal maybe. But I love this idea that you think of it this way, I think of it this way. Maybe I look back on this fondly and you look back on it with derision or hatred. Because then the collision moment gets even more spicy.
Yes. When they finally come back together and they're able to put their heads together and sort of like compare stories and go,
yeah.
And I think also like there's a level of self-preservation that happens in the grief period of losing the relationship where you go like, you sort of reframe and rewrite the narrative of what happens because you want to be in the hero role. You want to be in the right. You know, and you can sort of forget the things that you did that were wrong. I think the most interesting second chances are both sides were wrong in some way. That it wasn't one person messed up badly, although it can be. But both sides were in some way complicit in the breakup. And then each of them sort of has their own moment of like, well, you hurt me and I was the one who was hurt. And then they have to come around to this idea of like, oh, but I hurt you too.
Yeah, we both did each other dirty, perhaps, in this. Or we were angry at the wrong person or structure.
Yeah.
As a part of it. Especially if there were other people involved, whether it's parents, whether it's a jealous person who told a different story, what have you. Yeah, they're almost that galvanizing moment of, how dare they? I like that. Like, even look at The Notebook.
Yeah.
When Rachel McAdams' character, can't remember her name, realizes Allie.
I haven't even watched Notebook in a million years.
I haven't either, so I'm doing this from memory. But
Allie
I believe,
and Noah.
Yeah, and Allie's mom had hidden Noah's letters to her.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Joan Allen, that was not a good thing for you to do. But I like those moments too, when they previously thought something about each other and then a third party comes into it and now they get to team up against that third party, even if it was not something that could have been helped at the time. I like that. That interplay I find very fun to play with.
Would you believe that happened to my grandma and grandpa?
What?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was a little bit spitier than that.
I like spite, though.
Spite. Not spitier, like spidey sense, like spiteful. Again, writer over here.
There you go.
I can't even get the word spite.
You sure?
That's why we have autocorrect.
There you go.
But my grandma had several suitors, and her mother didn't like some of them, so she hid the letters. And so part of the reason that my grandma chose my grandpa was she was the one that my great-grandma liked the least.
drama. Okay, between your grandparents and then you and your husband, I feel like you're just living in a weird romance novel world.
Oh my God, wait till we get to Elijah's book. I have family story of long lost aunt who was gone for 60 years and came back in the 90s. Wait for it.
Anticipation.
You have to wait till fall to hear that one. It will go in the author's note, but you can't get it till fall. But anyway, I've seen this done really well in a lot of books too, where it is like Kate Canterbury has one called In a Second Chance. In a Jam is at a jam farm. She's very literal in these titles lately. But In a Second is a second chance romance where the hero wrote emails to the heroine every day for a year. Similar to Notebook. I wrote you a letter every day. But in a modern age, it was the parents hacked into her email account and automatically deleted all of the letters from him. So she never saw any of them. So this can be something where an external force can also keep them apart. And so that brings me to our third element, which is the time and the distance and the longing and the hurt of like who they became without each other during that time apart. This is also like the equivalent of the fake dating setup, right? Like, especially if you start in the present or you jump to the present quickly, which I think you don't want to linger in the past too much. You want it to be a present day story. If you're too dependent on the past, then it's not a second chance. It's just a rehashing of the first.
It loses some of the momentum. We've often talked about this idea, especially in screenwriting, that you want to start the story as late in the story as possible so that there is momentum. It feels like there's forward movement. It feels like it's being propelled forward rather than being dragged forward. I think it's true because like backstory is important, setup is important, but it's like don't spend. Like setup is so important because it gives value and resonance and meaning to what comes later.
Yes.
But if we spend so much time there, it's like, okay, now what?
Right.
Now what? So what?
We have to set up the wound. We have to set up the reason why they're hurting. We have to set up the reason why they're armored. So that way when they go into the now and the reunion and the reclamation, there's something to reckon with. But we also have to recognize that they are not the same person that they were then that they are now. So how has their life continued? What decisions have they made since that breakup? What has changed? What has changed about themselves? What has changed in their life? What didn't change? And what was the cost? What was the loss that they had? You know, sometimes it's the time of, Kate and Nick were separated for 7 years. And Aline and McKenna and again the Magic were separated for 12 years. What was the cost? And McKenna is just devastated for 12 years and he ends up becoming like a bitter, shriveled old man. Like he's not himself.
That's why therapy should have existed back then because I feel like he would have made some better decisions. Maybe. Hopefully.
If he'd gone. I don't think Lisa Kleypas's heroes are going to go to therapy.
No.
My heroes go to therapy.
Yes, we love it.
Nick has been to so much therapy.
Yeah, especially since he's a Hollywood guy, right? Like,
my God,
again, I hope he is protected.
He's so California that like Kate gets there and she hasn't been to therapy and Nick has, and he's like, oh yeah, they all talked about chakras and burned sage, babe. Like this is real.
Okay, I am very excited to read this book. I need to see this.
Anyway, so what did the separation cost them? What is not just like the opportunity cost of that time that they could have had together, but what are the decisions that they made during that time apart that would have been different if they had not been hurt in this way? It's proof that the time apart actually mattered and that the hurt changed their behavior in some way. Mm-hmm. Instead of just like, oh, let's go back and rewind to the past because nothing went wrong and I'm the same person. Mm-hmm. And then finally, element 4 out of 7. We're now halfway through the framework. They finally get back together.
What?
I call this the collision with consequences.
Yeah.
This is finally their forced proximity in some way. Right? They're in the same space. They have to go on a road trip together. They have to pretend to be engaged for some reason.
They're in the same wedding party.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just like they bump into each other at a diner. So Christina Lauren's Love in Other Words does this, where they bump into each other and she's engaged to someone else and he's dating someone else and they bump into each other and he's like, well, I'm breaking up with my girlfriend because now I know you exist again. Right? Like, so that collision that has a consequence almost immediately, but also a long-term consequence of, what the hell happened to you? Where did you go? Why didn't you return my phone calls? You know, like there's some reckoning that happens at this point. Another one of my favorites is The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This was one of my top books in the Tingley Awards of 2025. I don't know. Are we counting the year that we read the books to the year that we recorded? I don't know. Last year, first annual Tingley Awards.
There we go.
The X-Files was one of my favorites. And in that one, they're in a wedding party together. They are the best man and best woman of the groom. And so they have to go up to the place where they fell in love, which is where the wedding's happening. And then everything goes wrong in the wedding and they have to put it back together. And then they put themselves back together. And over the course of it, that's where you realize why they broke up and why they were together and all of that. But one of the things I love about this is he says, we will make it through this wedding and then we will have a reckoning.
Ooh.
And he's like, we can fake it through this for Adam because he's the groom and we need to do this for him. But then, Georgia, you and I are sitting down and we're talking this out, you know, and like she has it hanging over her. And I love that as a craft device because it's like, we know that they're going to talk. We know they're not going to talk yet. So you have to keep turning the pages to get to the reckoning because you know he's not going to let up.
Yeah, I also like at this moment when they come back together, I also like stories where there's almost a bit of ambivalence because, you know, we're past it. We're past it. It's fine. We can be civil. It's cool. And maybe you look back on the original moment or the original relationship or what have you. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's fondly. Maybe it's, you know, yeah, we were kids. We were young. What if? That's kind of an interesting question. So I also like those moments because then when it makes the tone shift into, wow, maybe it actually was more than that. Or maybe I am really curious or more invested in what's coming now. I also like those moments because I think sometimes second chance can also come from a quiet place. Not one with like big aliens that are attracted to noise and want to kill you. Quiet place. But, you know, not out of anger, not out of disaster. And so that means, in my mind, the loss is apparent only in the future. Because back then, maybe you didn't realize there was a loss or there was a lack or there was a place at which paths diverged from what they could have been because it was life. It was subtle. I often think because I have moved a lot.
Yeah.
I've lived in how many different countries. Sometimes I do wonder what would have happened to certain relationships if I hadn't moved, if I hadn't done this, and how would I react to something if I met that person now? All this to say is I also like when the reckoning doesn't come from anger or violence or a need to prove yourself or to prove that someone else was in the wrong. It can also just come from almost like a nostalgic moment of interest.
Yeah.
What would it have been like?
Yeah.
What would it? We sometimes see this in plots where it involves like a high school reunion. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, some type of reunion where you're coming back together like, oh, yeah, you were the captain of the football team. I was head cheerleader. Then we all did our own thing because we were 16. But like, what would have happened?
Yeah.
Interesting. So they still have that shared history, but it's not like this dramatic big moment, which I also enjoy.
Yeah. And I think also like the ambivalence can be scars that have softened over time.
Mm-hmm.
And that self-preservation can come back where it was like, oh, you hurt me, but also like we were young. Mm-hmm. Kids hurt each other.
We were young and dumb and hormonal.
Mm-hmm. And like we went to different colleges. We moved on. We both went on with our lives. And like we sort of tell ourselves the story that was what was meant to happen.
Mm. Yeah, like I had to grow up. Like I am not a fan of the kissing booth movies, especially the last one. That did some weird choices. But the two main characters who have been together through and like fighting for the relationship the entire thing, like they break up. Again, I haven't watched this in so many years. I'm doing this from memory. But I seem to remember that the ending is Joey King's character is like grown up, has a job. She's cut her hair, so you know she's different. And she meets up with, I want to say Jacob Elordi's character is Noah. Let's call him Noah.
Sure.
Joey
I
King
haven't
and
seen
Noah,
it,
they
so
kind of
it's
meet
Noah
up.
now.
There you go.
It's now canon.
They meet up in the future because they, from what I remember, they broke up and like things weren't great, but they were also extremely young. They were in college and now they're beyond that. And now they can kind of reacclimate to each other now that they have more control over their lives. We've talked about one of the reasons that you and I don't really love new adult. One, because their brain's not fully formed. Yes. But also, like, what do they have control over? Not a hell of a lot. Like, they're probably in college. They probably have no money. They're probably trying to get their first job or get into a career. None of that is particularly exciting, and I don't believe any of it will last because I'm sorry, you're 21, you're 22. So when they get to come back, maybe in their mid-30s, there's a little bit more trust established there too, that when they do reconnect, they get to decide things now. We will go out. We will do this thing. We will have a conversation. Because 20-year-olds can't do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes this is done really well, that the collision has the consequences. And sometimes it's like a little bit questionable. Like the Notebook, they have like 6 chances in the Notebook. And every time I'm like, why are you going back together?
Theirs is not what I would call a healthy relationship.
No.
As much as electrifying as Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams are, I think the reason those characters work is because it's Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd be like, girl, why are you not marrying James Marsden?
He is so...
Go marry Lon. He's so much better for you.
Yes. If there
Shots
weren't the
fired about the
chemistry,
Notebook.
God.
Yeah.
No, we should probably just talk about the Notebook as like a betrayal of reality, because James Marsden was 100% the better choice in every
he was
single
so
way.
much better.
So much better. Okay.
Love you, Ryan Gosling. Noah's great, but not for Allie.
Not for Allie. Allie should not have ended up with Noah. We're just going there. The
Sorry
second
about it.
chance, fail.
Sorry about it.
Element number 5 is that reckoning moment where they actually have to confront their memories and replace it with truth, where the self-preservation has to be put aside for the conversation about not just like what went wrong, but like almost like a taking of responsibility or an understanding of each other's pain. The moment of I hurt you when I'm sorry, where both sides are able to then rewrite the original narrative. So even if you're in that sort of ambivalent place of like, oh, well, we were young and we grew, you can also say, but we did have something and it did hurt to break up with that and to lose that. And that's important and it's valued. And now we are older, more mature, more in control of our lives, more aware of our emotions, more able to express ourselves. You know, like so often second chance is like impulsive kids. And that's important, but it's also infuriating.
And that reckoning moment can also cause more damage.
Yes.
Which is also fun to read. Coming back together, there's an argument, there's a battle, there's further misunderstanding, or there's just non-productive communication, which is also fun because then they have to reset again to be like, okay, don't be a bitch. Like, let's actually deal with what the issue actually is, not what we've kind of created in our mind as what the issue is.
Yeah, I think
it's like 4-year-olds. Keep asking why.
Why?
Go deeper. Go deeper into the wound. Go deeper into the pain. Is fun. Suffer for my enjoyment, characters.
And again, we come back to what we were talking about with Address, where it's like psychological safety as a reader, where we can explore someone else's emotions and feel it somatically in our bodies, but not necessarily need to experience the pain ourselves, is a reason that we love romance. Not all the time. We can't always handle these big, heavy feelings, but when you need a book that's going to like tear you apart and sew you back together, second chance is a good choice to reach for. Done well.
It can feel somewhat uplifting. I'm still thinking Rachel McAdams. The Vow is an interesting play on second chance. Have you seen The Vow?
I haven't. Tell me.
So The Vow is Rachel McAdams and Channing Tatum. They're a married couple. They're together. She's in an accident. She loses her memory of everything involving him.
I love Amnesia Second Chance. I didn't know this existed.
It's based on a true story of an actual couple. So she loses all her memories of him and her kind of breaking up with her family and changing career. So when she comes out of the coma, she thinks it's however many years before. And she's like, why am I not with that guy? Why am I not in this job? Why am I not talking to my parents? And it's part of her navigating, I'm married to this guy. I have no idea who this is. I have no idea why I made the choices I did to have the life he says we have. I'm still back here. And it's him having to deal with the fact that the woman he loves no longer knows who he is or what their life was. And again, it's based on a true story. She never gets her memories back. You know, they kind of have to date again. So their second chance is not because of anything they did. Their second chance literally has to come out of tragic circumstance, like Amnesia.
Is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind a second chance?
I would not call that a romance by any means.
I didn't say romance. I said
no. I don't know. I guess it could be. I just don't like that movie. That's just me.
It was an art house film. It wasn't meant to be happy ever after, and people who call it a romance don't really understand. Because and
that's kind of how The Vow ends. Is they have split up because she has no idea who he is, and she thinks she still has this career, and I think she was going to be something corporate. Let's say she was going to be a lawyer. It was kind of a traditional thing. But when she left to become an artist, so that's how Channing Tatum knew her, was she was an artist. So they split up. And the end of the film, the last scene of the film is him, I think, going home, and she's waiting for him. And she's like, hey, I moved back into the city. I moved out of my parents' place. I'm making art again. I hear there's a really good restaurant around the corner. Do you want to go have hot chocolate? I guess that was something they used to do. So he's like, do you remember? And she's like, no, but let's go. So it's this idea of like, there's something we should try. So it ends like on a potentially uplifting note that they'll have to rebuild their relationship, but he is essentially having a relationship with a completely different person. And they have to reconcile who she was before and who she is now, and they cannot be the same person. They won't be.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have a memory of all the things that made her who she was. It's kind of like a happy for now. Maybe.
Happy for now. Like we're setting up a happy ever after, but we don't get there. Yeah, I was reminded of Repeat by Kylie Scott has a similar premise where she wakes up, she has amnesia. She like looks at I'm trying to remember. It's been a while and I didn't prep this one, but I think she like looks at the address on her driver's license and she goes there and it's like her ex-boyfriend's house and she doesn't remember him, but he remembers all the reasons that they broke up, and so she has to like sort of piece together why they broke up, what she could do differently, why does she feel this pull and this attraction to him, and what did she do wrong the last time that she can sort of remedy now when she can't apologize. I love Amnesia Second Chance. It's such a specific niche.
It's very specific. It's very common in like J dramas and K dramas, like the idea of amnesia.
And probably like soap operas in general, right?
Oh,
where
yeah.
just,
like how
memories
many times,
are wiped.
Like I've never been like a soap opera person or like a telenovela person, but I feel like amnesia is a very common trope. But honestly, how many times can one character get amnesia before they just have permanent brain damage?
I mean, that's
like,
really what it is.
I've had 6 concussions. I'm pretty sure there's some weird shit happening in my brain. So I can only imagine to have head injuries so hard you get amnesia, what that does for your health long term.
It's also reminding me of the Scared Sexy Allie Hazelwood book where she
he
gets
Hot for
amnesia.
Slayer.
Yeah,
Hot for Slayer. Yeah.
The Slayer is like, I know I like you, but I can't remember why. And are you a vampire? Like, she can't remember she's a vampire and he's a vampire slayer. God,
I guess that is fun because like amnesia creating the second chance, circumstance, like childhood, second chance, an intense breakup, second chance. There's a lot now that I think through this, which is always what happens when we do these deep dive episodes. We're like, oh wait, there are so many ways this can come up. And oh my God, I have actually read or watched or consumed more of this trope than I originally thought I had.
Right. And what I said to you at the beginning, like, what's your favorite second chance? And you're like, I'll come up with it as you talk.
I'm sure I will discover it while we talk.
Exactly. So let me run through it thus far. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have the history. We have the rupture. We have the distance. We have the collision. We have the reckoning. 2 more pieces that are required for a second chance to feel like it stuck the landing. The choosing each other again. Right? How this time is different. So this is when it becomes real that it could turn into a happy ever after this time, because either enough has changed in their circumstances but usually something has changed in their circumstances and they are now choosing to behave differently to each other in some way. So they have already gone through that sort of reckoning process. They articulated what failed before. They name what they're choosing now. And then they define who are we to each other now. So they have to be more honest, more vulnerable, more exposed emotionally to each other. Otherwise, they're just repeating the same patterns instead of breaking the pattern that broke them up the first time. One book that I love how they do this is Kennedy Ryan's Before I Let Go, because he finally goes to therapy. You knew it was coming. I think I talked about this as a book I shipped where I'm like,
we love it.
They are a divorced couple because so many things went wrong in a span of time, where they own a restaurant together that was like partially owned by his aunt, and then she is pregnant. She miscarries the baby. That happens early on. Hopefully that's not a trigger for anybody. And then she goes into deep grief. He goes into over functioning, where he sort of neglects her because he has to keep their livelihood alive and their other children going while she's in grief. And the only way that she thinks she can escape it is divorce. And that's where you enter the story, is they're already divorced, but they're still co-parenting. They're living down the street from each other. How do they make this work? So you have all that history, all that love, all that happiness. And then at some point when they're still in running a business together, right? They're still business partners. They're still co-parents. They're still in each other's lives. They start dating other people. There's really a big struggle here. And then they finally get to the reckoning and go, well, what happened? And the choice to change is when their son asks him to go to therapy. It's not her. It's their son who's like struggling because his parents are divorcing. And he's like, well, Dad, if I'm talking to the doctor and it's helping me, why don't you do it? And then he starts to finally go process these emotions, recognize what his wife was going through, his ex-wife was going through, and then she can articulate it to him in a way that he can hear and acknowledge and apologize for. And then they can choose to try again. And it doesn't have to be leap back into marriage, but it can be stay overnight, right? And choosing each other again and taking those baby steps back towards what they were. But they're stronger because now they can experience it together and articulate these things together, and they have common language from the emotional resonating work that they've done on their own.
I haven't seen or read any second chance that does this, but I would be curious because it still kind of is a happy ending. It might not qualify as fully romance, though, by traditional definition. Is in a scenario like that, is the second chance just being happy civil co-parents?
Yeah.
And coming back to a place where, you know what, I do actually love you, just not in that way anymore. And that's totally fine. Again, I don't know if I'd qualify that as a romance, but I also think that concept of second chance would be really interesting there, because it is looking back on a history. It is agreeing or coming to terms and having this reckoning of what your relationship was in the past. Just the relationship from that point moving forward is no longer a romantic one, but it can still be a loving one.
I think it's not, it can fit into a romance arc, but it's not going to be the primary couple. This was done really well in Saddle to Sunup by Emmy Sanders. So Lawson was previously married. Now he's divorced. They have a daughter, Wendy, and he sort of has this like reckoning with his ex-wife of, oh, the reason that our relationship didn't work is because I was gay, but I didn't know that. And so they sort of have to have this recognition of, I'm sorry I hurt you, but you hurt me because I think you knew I was gay and didn't tell me, help me realize that about myself. You just wanted to stay in this relationship for a while. And then his best friend Oakley, who he does end up with, he gets his happy ending, but he also has to co-parent with Laura and have that reckoning and that sort of reunion with her to say, this was hurtful and this hurt me, but I don't want this to be the end of our relationship because our daughter still matters. And that's a hard space to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The figuring out what matters is such a big piece of this too, in order for the characters to move forward. They have to abandon certain things, whether it's thoughts they had in the past, whether it's things they want to do now. That shedding of something to be able to say, that's no longer important, that no longer matters. And maybe they have to make that choice so that they can move forward, to be like, clean slate starting from now. Or maybe it's like, if you want to do that, then we can't be together. So if you stop doing that, then maybe we can. Maybe they have to change jobs. Maybe they have to move. Well, whatever sacrifice they are choosing to make is also saying something else is more important, and I'm shedding or saying no to something, whether it was in the present or past.
Completely agree. And that brings me to my final element that is required. So thank you for
that. God, I'm good.
For that Segu.
Segu. I would literally just think Segu. Yep.
It's proof. It's the future under pressure. It's that like the happy ever after isn't just like, oh, we chose each other and now we're together. It's the behavior change. It's the different response when things go wrong. It's the evidence that they're going to make it through the crucible together, and I think sometimes like people are hating on the third act breakup because they're like, oh, well, they just break up for no reason. But I always think of the third act breakup as like, this is the proof that they are going to last long term. This is each of these characters getting a taste of what they need to learn in order to be a better partner long term, so that way they can be the one that they want to stay with this time around. And I think it's even more important in a second chance to say, let's pressure test this. Let's see if we can make it work this time. What has to change? Because it isn't just a place of hope. And if we try really hard, they have the history, they have the hurt, they have had to work through a lot of shit together that hopefully makes them stronger. And if they haven't done all of that, like interpersonal work with each other and internal work for what did they do wrong the first time, potentially did wrong, or what stories did they tell themselves that they need to untell themselves? Second Chance has a lot of like internal work to undo the stories that we've already told ourselves.
And if the internal work isn't done, then it's at least they've started to do the work. Because your concept or your thoughts about like there's hope for moving forward, I think is really important. Because I think I wouldn't expect characters to have something fully figured out. To be like, we are so good from here on out. It's just donuts and cupcakes, right? So even if they've just started or they've committed to figuring it out together, I'm also satisfied with that as a future. And maybe they'll have like a couple things like, you can no longer do this. Treat me this way, talk this way, do this thing, what have you. But as long as they've made strides towards fixing the thing that fucked them up in the first place, I'm like, that's also good enough for me to just know they're going to try.
There has to be a change.
There's going to be some effort here.
There has to be a commitment to change in some way. Yeah, I would say that like Second Chance is not just like, oh, they got back together. It's like we are choosing to revisit what was broken in the past and then figuring out what the truth was and committing to a future that in a more honest way. I think honesty has to be a big part of it.
Yeah. Or willingness to figure out what honesty is too. Depending on like the hurt that people are coming through. I don't think I'd believe it. Again, it depends on the story and like how long they're like back together before the ending. Because if they just decide like 10 pages from the end of the book, like we're going to do it again. I'm like, I don't know if I fully believe you yet. I don't know if I fully believe that you're still going to be together or still be in a place where you can have this conversation. Or is it as soon as we say the end, the very next day, they're like, you fucking idiot, we're done. Throw tables. So there has to be something that is explicitly communicated that we're going to keep doing something or not doing something.
Yeah. And I think there has to be an escalation. And I think also there's a reason that second chances aren't usually the debut book in a series too.
I think it would be really hard in Second Chance just by nature of the trope and this concept of the second time around has to be different. You have to prove to me that the characters will be different. There's a lot of faith you have to take there. And it's either going to be an author that you know and trust already, or they have to be so good at their craft that they have my immediate buy-in from the very beginning. Because otherwise I'm going to get to that point and not trust, and I'm just going to be left feeling a little dissatisfied.
Yeah. And I think Second Chance is a very hard trope to take on. And like I joke like, oh, Kate and Nick weren't ready for each other. I was not ready as a writer to write a second chance. I started writing a second chance and went, no, I can't. I'm not strong enough to do this. I'm not willing to put my characters in enough discomfort to write this story yet. It took me 5 years to write it because it takes that much time to figure out all of the ways that they're broken that they have to then sort of glue themselves and each other back together. It's a hard trope to write. And we were talking with DJ Jameson about how people don't like
that's literally I was going to ask him, like, what author were we talking with? I couldn't remember if it was DJ or Kay Sterling that were like, they really liked Second Chance, but they were like, I'm not going to write it because they don't sell. And I'm curious, like, I like it, but I'm curious what don't people like about it that from an author's perspective, it's not necessarily a trope that they should bother writing? And I don't know what it is.
I would
like
disagree with don't bother writing, but I will say that it is a harder trope to write, and it's a harder trope to engage with as a reader because the characters are so they walk into it broken, and so the contract is different that you have as a reader and a writer, that the psychological safety is different and the premise is different because you have characters who have hurt each other before, and you as the reader feel the hurt from before. Especially if the groundwork has been laid in the past or in the memories to be like, oh, he was a dick. Oh, she was a bitch. Why didn't she just say that? And then you have to, like, as a writer, you have to explain, like, oh, she was 19 and scared, or he was so excited about this that he didn't notice this and this and this, or whatever those pieces are. And then you have to make up for them in the present. Otherwise, again, it doesn't feel satisfying. So it takes a lot more work to make a second chance work. And as a reader, it takes a lot more emotional labor to sit in the discomfort of a second chance. If you are coming in for the first time, these are two characters meeting each other for the first time, and this person's been hurt in the past by other people, it's not as visceral. You don't have, it's a matter of forgiveness. Like you as the reader have to forgive the younger versions of these characters. And that's a hard thing to ask, especially if you're a reader who struggles with some of these things yourselves, you know? If you've been hurt and you've been triggered and you've been broken up with in a similar way to what you're reading, and you can feel that somatically, you know?
Mm-hmm. And then you could also encounter the fantasy of, what if it did work out better?
What if it happened? What if
I actually did get a happy ending?
Yeah.
It makes all the shitty relationships worth it if one of them come. What's that Anna Faris, Chris Evans movie? What's My Number? What's Your Number? Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. So Anna Faris plays this woman who has dated a lot of men, has had a ton of relationships. And her sister is about to get married. And I think she just gets fired from her job where she had just slept with that boss. And she's like on the subway home, and she sees an article in something like a Cosmo that talks about women and their body count, quote unquote. And the article essentially says, if a woman has slept with more than, I don't remember how many men, X number of men, she won't get married.
Oh my God, the slut
So she's
shaming.
like, I know. The whole thing about body counts and numbers I don't love. But essentially what she starts doing, she starts writing down all the men she's had sex with. And she's like at the number. Like, let's say it's 50. I don't remember what it is. But if the number that after which, like, the studies from Stanford say you won't get married if you've slept with more than 50 men, she's at 49.
Oh.
And then she sleeps with another guy and she goes, oh my God, he can't be the last one I sleep with. He can't be the one I'm married. So then she says, well, maybe one of the men I dated in my past is actually the right one. So she hires her neighbor, Chris Evans, who is a private investigator, to help her track down her exes so that she can revisit them to see if one of them should have been the one. And it's like, why did they break up? Some of them were like kind of one night stands. Some of them were longer term relationships. And it's her going back and saying, well, maybe I went through that bullshit earlier because they were meant to come back to me now, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really cute rom-com, and Chris Evans is very funny in it. Yeah,
it sounds really cute. I read a version of this.
Cute.
I read a version of this where it was like someone went to a tarot reader or like an oracle or like a fortune teller, and they were like, "You've already met the person that you're meant to be with." So then she goes back and like 12 dates of Christmas sort of thing, where she goes on dates and she tries to track everyone down, and her best friend is the one who's trying to help her track it all down. It's him.
It's him. Yeah. Who knew? Okay, I like it. It's fun.
Nikki, let's wrap it up. What is the thing that you ship the most about the trope of second chance?
I think, there's so many good parts to it. I say
know.
Broadly, though, with the trope, it is that moment of coming back together and dealing with what's in front of you. And because you have to do some adulting, which is hard.
Yeah.
You may have to have a hard conversation. But I also just like the emotional spike that happens there. Whether the first chance ended because of like a breakup or misunderstanding, and that is like a violent "fuck you" type of break, or if it's just like, it's like nostalgia. I like both of those entrances into that reunification moment. I think there's a lot of emotional play, and there's a lot of different places you can take it from there. So I think that's what I love. What about you, Meg? What are you shipping the most about Second Chance?
What you just said, so I'm gonna just like co-sign that and then move on to something else, which is like the Easter eggs of why it doesn't work the first time.
Mm-hmm. I like referring to them as Easter eggs.
Yeah, you know, and as a writer, I think of it that way, where it's like, here are all the little moments where you see the cracks. And then when the rupture happens, you're like, yeah, of course they didn't work out. They didn't have the foundations in place. Look at how they weren't communicating well in this term, or how one simple thing that, and you know, I'm obviously thinking about the book that I just wrote, where it's like, you see one night from both of their perspectives, where they have like a one night stand, and she's like thinking to herself, I wish he'd asked me out to dinner. Why didn't he ask me out to dinner before this? And then he's thinking to himself, I'm so glad that we got the sex out of the way so I can take her out to breakfast, because I really want to start a relationship with her, but I was so nervous. And we see that from both sides of like why they made that decision and how it hurt both of them, that they didn't just say like, should we go out to dinner? Or, you know, but like they were both in self-protection mode. I love those choices of how, whether it's an external force or a lack of communication or some sort of like young person lack of invulnerability, invincibility. I love that. I love the setup of the chemistry is there, the love is there, something isn't going to work this time. How do you fix it the next time? How do we see what isn't going to work so that way we can fix it in the future? I love all that setup.
Sweet. I agree. This is a good, again, a good trope that I didn't think I consumed a lot of, and it turns out I do. Well done.
Well, if you are loving Second Chance and you're like, I need more recommendations for Second Chance, I'm going to encourage you to come on over to the show notes. I'll put a dozen of my favorite Second Chances in the show notes. We'll get Nikki to pull together her list.
Add mine in.
Exactly. Now that you have the framework in your head and you're like, oh, I loved when this author did this. We'll put links for each of those if you want to pick them up on Amazon. If you do decide to purchase through our Amazon links, then we get 2% of that sale. So like, hey, big spender. Nikki, I owe you $5.01 from last month.
Yes, I can buy a donut.
We can buy half a book that we're going to read for a future episode. Only the first half, and then you have to stop.
It's true. You teased this in the second episode, or the last episode, Heated Rivalry. Do you think it's Second Chance or not?
I do not.
I don't either.
I think it's a slow
That's
burn.
it. No reasons. Yep. We're just moving on.
Yep. We're already at 54 minutes. We know.
It's like debate in the comments. No, it's fine. Okay. I agree. I don't think it is. I think it is.
I don't think that they had a meaningful enough commitment for it to count as a second chance.
And a meaningful enough breakup in my mind.
Yeah.
Missing those two elements. All right.
I agree.
Debate
Everything
that
else
amongst
is there,
yourselves.
though. They have the history. They have the reckoning later on. They have all the pieces of it, except for the meaningful commitment that that they can feel like there's a rupture that is, you know, based on a previous, meaningful commitment.
Yeah. I like it. Beautiful. Then now for the big question, Meg, what should you be shipping this week?
I am shipping 2 novellas by A.J. Claremont, who is my friend Megan Flatt. Her pen name is A.J. Claremont.
I didn't know what her pen name is. Awesome. Yes. It's a great pen name.
It is. And I think it's one of those, like, what is the name of the street that you grew up on, sort of like romance novel pen names.
Your porn star name, your spy name, your Bridgerton name.
She had several that she wanted to try, and they were all taken, and she was like, A.J. Claremont, it's done. So we will have her on at some point in the next month or two to talk about book 3 when it comes out. But she did launch books 1 and 2 novellas in her series. They are called Faking It and Crashing Out. They are both under 30,000 words. So that's like, I don't know, 100 pages each. So you can sit down and, I mean,
a nice light 20-minute read for me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Nikki can read them in like a blink. But for the rest of us, it's about an hour and a half, right? It fits into that Kindle 2-hour read window. But they're really sweet. It's a series called Across the Hall. And so they are all books that take place in the same apartment complex in San Francisco, which is where Megan is. So you get these like really adorable San Francisco moments in it. This one is a fake engagement where then they have to go to a nonprofit fundraiser together, and then they end up going on a date, and then they start dating really, and so they do it all backwards, which I really love. And so by the end of it, he's like, can I just like take you out to dinner? So it starts at the high stakes and sort of works its way down, which works really incredibly well in a novella format. And then the second book in the series is Crashing Out. It's another couple in the same apartment building. And so they're all sort of interacting with each other throughout the hallways, which is really fun. This one is a best friend's brother. So I love that. The character Cal, who will be the hero in book 5, he goes to Doctors Without Borders and he says to his best friend, you know what, just come stay in my place while I'm out of town. And then his sister breaks up with her boyfriend, and she goes and stays in Cal's place while he's out of town at Doctors Without Borders. And so they have to sort of negotiate the roommates with benefits crashing together. And then both of them sort of end up in different career spaces because of the work that they do together. So definitely recommend both of those novellas. Again, they're quick reads. It is Faking It and Crashing Together by A.J. Claremont.
I love that. Nice job. I'll have to read those. Add them to my list.
They're your 20-minute reads. Yes. Nikki, what are you shipping this week?
2 things. One really quick. I have to show, for those of you watching on YouTube, this super cute little Highland cow
Oh my God, he's adorable.
My best friend, Jen, her mom knows I am obsessed with Highland cows. And because it was my birthday the other day at the time of this recording, she bought me this little figurine. And then I got home from seeing Anne Juliet, which I shipped last week. And Jen says, oh, by the way, my mom got you a gift, but she hid it. And I was like, okay, thank you, Lynn. Her mom is Lynn. And she's like, you'll see it when you make your coffee. So since Sunday morning, I wake up to go to my Nespresso machine and I pull the lid off the jar that holds all my Nespresso pods. And this little guy was sitting on the top. And originally I was going to name him Barry. But when I showed him to Meg, she goes, oh, is his name Rourke? Like Morning Glory Milking Farm? So now his name is Rourke. So hello, everybody. My little cute Highland cow, he sits on my desk.
We'll put him in the Instagram stories too.
He's very cute. He's just going to be like my figurine that's like just hanging out in the bottom of everything.
Nikki is going to have like, since you can't visualize faces and you spend a good chunk of that episode being like, I don't know what it would be like to kiss a cow.
Mouse.
Now you're going to have this in your head instead.
I'm going to have this really cute little mini Highland cow figurine. But what I am shipping this week, this is Meg, I think I'm going to read this log line to you and it's going to blow your mind a little bit.
Yes.
So the book is called Doppelbanger.
Yes!
Sci-fi romance by W.H. Lockwood. Did you see this book?
No, but I already love it.
I didn't know this author. I didn't know this book. I think I was just scrolling through Instagram on the First Dates account and it kind of popped up as like the trope reveal. So it's called Doppelbanger.
Banging name.
You have a character named August Blackthorne. He's kind of a down on his luck, not a lot of money karate instructor, and he's being stalked. And he comes face to face with the stalker to realize it's him from another dimension.
So this is
this other August Blackthorne, his doppelganger, is like a physicist, really smart science dude who is trying to fix the interdimensional multiverse problem that he created and that is killing off other universes. So the chapters are told from alternating POVs, and it's good August and bad August in brackets, although good August doesn't know I'm bad yet. And it's them, they bang each other, but they're like, we're kind of the same person because we are the actual same person from a different universe. And then they start getting other people to help them solve this problem. And maybe there are other doppelgangers of themselves they run into from other dimensions. So it's 510 pages. Like it's a fairly long book.
Yeah.
It was good and also confusing and also good and also what the fuck did I just read, but also good. So if you would like a sci-fi romance
based on Into the Spider-Verse
that makes you really confront if you are literally fucking yourself from another universe, is it incest? That is a question the characters also wrestle with. And I don't know my answer to that question. Check out Doppelbanger by W.H. Lockwood. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Have fun. And actually, I just started reading another book by W.H. Lockwood this morning. It's called Love Beneath the Guillotine. So far, so good. I'll let you know.
Not quite as clever as Doppelbanger, but I feel like that's a book where you're like, I just came up with this name and now I have to write it. What's the story?
I know. I feel like that is a book that title came first, story came later.
100%.
Doppelbanger. You're welcome. That is it for us this week. If you'd like to support the show, a couple ways you can do it for absolute free. Head on over to your podcast provider of choice, leave us a rating, review, and subscribe. Tell a friend. Word of mouth is a fantastic way to help other people find out about our show. You can follow us on social media. We are at First Dates and Soulmates on all of those platforms. And if you'd like to support the show financially, a couple things you can do. As Meg said, we're going to put all of our book recs into the show notes for you, so you can check out our storefront and list on Amazon. You can check out our merch. There's a couple new things that have been added to our merch store on TeePublic that is also linked for you in the show notes. And then you can also subscribe to the show on Substack. Subscribe for 1 month, subscribe for many months. Totally up to you. We're just so happy that you are here, Soulmates. We very much appreciate you. Coming up next week, Second Chance Month continues. We're talking Sweet Home Alabama. Next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.